Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers. In this video, we are going to be comparing two shoes that many of you have been asking for reverses of for quite some time. And that is the New Balance 1080 V13 and the New Balance More V4. Let's dive in. The New Balance Freshfoam 1080 V13 costs £160 or $164.99, weighs in at 262 grams or 9.2 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 6mm. The New Balance Freshfoam More V4 costs £140 or $149.99, it weighs in at 298 grams or 10.5 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 4mm. The Freshfoam 1080 range has long been one of New Balance's most popular shoes for cushioned daily training. However, despite the chunky level of midsole foam, the shoe has historically veered towards a firmer ride. The 1080 V13 has modified the shoe with a new, softer Freshfoam midsole to improve the level of cushioning and comfort, as well as redesigned the upper with a new breathable mesh that offers more structure than earlier versions. The shoe features plenty of padding around the ankle collar and tongue for a healthy dose of stepping comfort, and it features an endurance rubber outsole for grip and to improve durability. The Freshfoam More V4 is a max cushion shoe designed for plush, comfortable miles that features a number of design updates over the More V3. The biggest of those is the addition of even more Freshfoam X midsole foam that makes it higher and wider than its predecessor, a design feature that aims to improve the stability of the ride as well. New Balance has also updated the outsole with new cushion zones across the length of the shoe, as well as flex zones to give it a more natural feel on the run. The shoe still features a rocker profile for a smooth transition and a modified engineered mesh upper that's built to feel plush but ensure ample breathability. The outsole is covered with a generous level of rubber for grip and to protect the midsole foam. There's also a reflective logo on the shoe for added visibility at night. Okay, so Nick, how has the fit been for you in both of these shoes?
Absolutely zero concerns with fit in either of these shoes. I've got my normal UK size, my normal New Balance size. Sometimes New Balance come up a bit short because they convert a UK 9 to a US 9.5, and in their racing shoes generally, New Balance are often very short, like the SC Trail, for example, is crazy short. And in general, if you're looking at the racing lineup, I'd be tempted to go half size up, but with both New Balance, the More V4 and the 1080 V13, perfectly happy with my normal size, good amount of room in the toe box, perfectly good hold at the midfoot. So yeah, normal size for me.
Nice, I agree. They're actually got very similar uppers now. The 1080 V11 and V12 had that sort of strange sock-like upper, which some people just didn't get on with, and I found it to be a little bit uncomfortable, not very, supportive around the foot. It just felt a little bit loose. Whereas the 1080 V13's got this lovely new upper, nicely reinforced, a lot of padding on it, really nice secure fit without being too tight, and it's basically the same upper as that's on the More V4. So yeah, very similar and perfect for me.
Perfect.
So when it comes to fit, I've run in a UK 8.5 in both the More V4 and the 1080 V13. That's what I would recommend, going true to size. Got quite wide feet, got quite high insteps, but overall good length in the toe box on both of them. I think there's good room across the top of the toes for me as well in both these shoes. Pretty much equal in terms of the fit. I think the More V4 probably hug slightly more, and they're probably closer into the toe box than I found the 1080 V13. So it's just a bit more room. I think there's a bit more wiggle room for the toes, a bit more flex in the toe box. They feel a bit more airy, and the More V4 feel a little bit more snug. But overall, I would recommend going true to size in both of them. Good heel hold, good lockdown, and yeah, no problems, true to size for me.
So fit for me has been very good overall in both of these shoes. I had them both in a UK size 8, and I would say, you know, looking at how the uppers are designed, the level of padding you're getting here, and the heel and the tongue, they do offer similar styles of fit. There is an argument to say maybe you're getting a little bit more volume in the More V4 in terms of the upper, but ultimately I think it's still kind of maybe sucks you in a little bit more the midfoot, but I think, you know, ultimately they do feel very similar in terms of what I found. I think, you know, getting a similar level of volume and space up front in the toes. As I say, no slippage at the heel because, you know, you're getting a good amount of padding there too. So for me, based on my testing, I would go true to size. A UK size 8 has been absolutely fine for me in the More V4 and the 1080 V13.
Okay, so the run test in these two shoes, Nick. Talk to me.
Both good shoes, both cruising shoes. I think very much these are two shoes designed for easy runs, and that was all I would use them for. The 1080 in the past maybe had a little bit more versatility, but this latest version is softer and very much a plodder of a shoe, and a really enjoyable one. Actually, I do enjoy running in both of these shoes. You've got the lower drop, clearly more rockered, more V4, which I think has a firmer feel, the foam in it for sure. But I do like ticking over in it. It's got a lovely rocker. It doesn't feel firm because it is so well cushioned still and nicely rolls through with your stride. So enjoyed using it. It's just a big old shoe though, big stable base. The 1080 V13 is notably lighter, and it feels a little bit kind of more nimble on the foot as a result, but I don't necessarily think it's a much faster shoe because it is a lot lighter, but it's got a softer foam, and I sink in a bit to it and it feels very lovely and cushioned, but it's not really providing a base to go and try and run quick in. So I think basically what you've got here is two fantastic easy day daily trainer shoes with a different feel. You've got the rockered, lower drop, more V4, slightly firmer, and then the ultra soft 1080 V13 if you want that really soft ride. But pretty big fan of both. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, so, well, if anybody watching this who's a fan of the channel will know that I spend most of my time talking about the New Balance More V4 and none of my time talking about the 1080 range because I've never been a fan of the 1080 range. I think if you hit it on the head there with the 1080 midsole foam. It's the same midsole foam that's in the New Balance More V3 and the New Balance More V4. But I think the difference for me is it's definitely not a really soft foam, but there is a lot of it in the More V4. And as a result, it does have a very different experience than what you get from the 1080 V11 and the V12, which for me are a little bit dull. And there's just nothing I ever get from those shoes. You put them on and they're fine, but you know they're not really soft on. They don't veer towards the comfortable side, and they don't veer towards the versatile side. They're just bog standard shoes, really. So I think the More V4. The reason I like that so much is that foam that when you put a lot more of it in there, it actually has a little bit of a different experience, and I like that. Really like the cruising, rolling motion of the More V4. It just feels really nice. I really like the wide base on it. I think that's a really nice feature of it. It's just a really nice, comfortable cruiser. Love it. You know I love it. The 1080B13 is really interesting to me because yes, it's a lot softer. It's a tricky one now for New Balance because now they've essentially got two shoes that are sort of competing for the same sort of thing now. Now it is a lot softer and I really, really like it. I just think it's a very comfortable, enjoyable shoe. Yeah, it's not versatile. You're not going to run fast in this shoe. It sort of saps a little bit of your energy as well if you try and pick up the pace of it because it is so soft. But I do think it's a really nice, just enjoyable shoe. I think I could do a lot of miles in this shoe at nice, consistent pace or relatively slow pace. But yeah, I think they're both great, and I'm struggling now the 1080 V13's come out because there's another shoe that I really like from New Balance sort of cushioned range.
Yeah, my enjoyment of them was very equal over short distance. I will say I did a long run in both. I do prefer the More V4 feeling because it is that little bit firmer, just gives you a bit more of a solid base to run a long run on, and it rolled through really nicely with the rocker. I really actually quite liked using it for long runs. And then the 1080, it does feel good, but like I say, you're just sinking a little bit too much. And by the end of a long run in it, I was longing for a slight edge to the shoe, a little bit more firmness. I mean, that's not something that everyone will want, but it's not like it's going to be uncomfortable. But a slightly more solid base, I think, helps me over the course of a long distance run. So that's probably one area where I think the More V4 did stand out for me. Yeah. But overall, the experience is good in both.
Well, we all know you're a big fan of walking around in running shoes, so I think both of these are great for that. But I was wearing the 1080 V13 the other day to the shop, and it is nice to walk around to the shops in. Not that that's why you'd spend that much money on a running shoe, but it's very comfortable.
Well, I used mine the other day to go climbing trees with my daughter Albert, and it's got quite dirty because I kept trapping my foot in branches, to try and get perches to climb up, and that's ruined the look of it a bit. I don't know if you can just clean off tree bark residue, but that's something I have
maybe
to look
don't
into.
use your £160 running shoes for climbing up trees.
Should use a thinner shoe as well, a nimbler shoe. If I knew, it was unexpected, the tree climbing. It wasn't like we were planning it. It just happened, as it often does with tree climbing.
Yeah, that's the case. I don't do it. So, yeah.
So I'm just back from doing a side-by-side mile, one shoe on each foot, and I think there's a lot of similarities to these shoes. Basically what you've got here is two big, soft, cushioned cruisers, kind of cocoon shoes, the way they hold the foot, the way they wrap, the plush collars, the plush tongues. The way that the uppers hold and wrap is very, very similar. In fact, the overall feel on the foot, it's one of those shoes where they do run differently, but if you blindfolded yourself, you might have trouble deciding which is which. Now, when it comes to the ride, the one thing that I really noticed having those two shoes side by side, I think, is how much more support and structure there is to the midsole of the More V4. There's a lot more foam in the middle section of the foot that comes out wider, and that kind of almost acts as a guide, I think, for the foot. I think overall, it's ever so slightly kind of firmer for me, even though arguably it feels like there should be more cushioning here. And then you get a bit more guidance from the wider overall platform than you do with the 1080 V13. I'm not entirely sure I find one of them particularly more springy or responsive than the other. I think that the 1080 V13 is probably overall just a little bit more agile, a bit more nimble. I think there's more versatility in it. I wouldn't really like to take the More V4 out for anything faster than very, very slow easy miles. I pretty much feel the same about the 1080 V13, but I think at a push you can run faster in it, and you probably can do slightly more range of different runs in it, though I think it still excels at being that kind of easy cruising, happy kind of plodding head up shoe for comfort miles. When it comes to how they feel on the foot, I think they both got quite hugging uppers. I think that the 1080 V13 have a little bit more room and airiness in the toe box. There's just a little bit more wiggle room. The More V4 hug a little bit tighter. They're a little bit more, I guess, secure, if you like that kind of thing. A little bit tighter, you might say, but I think overall they just hold the foot a little bit more. Whereas there's a bit more room and a bit more maneuverability, I think, in the 1080 V13. Not sure which I prefer overall, really, to be honest. Maybe the 1080 V13. I think if you want a little more wiggle room, that's the one to go for. If you like it a little bit tighter, go for the More V4. And I guess really the big difference here is really that. It's just about how protected you're going to be from cushioning and impact on the road in the More V4, but also that wider platform, I think, bringing in a lot more stability. It runs a little bit flatter. Now, that's probably down to the fact that the 1080s have a slightly higher drop, but I also feel like the rockering on the 1080s gives a little bit better roll through and clip through than you get from the More V4. Again, the More V4, it just feels like a shoe that I just want to sort of stay back a little bit on my heels, want to run a little bit flatter. I'm going to roll, but it's going to be sort of, I'm moving at a slower pace. I don't know. The 1080 V13 just feel like I want to clip a little bit more, and there's just a little bit more energy coming back. They're slightly wobblier as well, I think, overall, but I don't think there's a huge amount to choose in terms of stability in both these shoes.
So into that run test, and I would say that these two shoes are designed for very similar runs, if not identical runs. And that hasn't been the case with previous 1080 shoes, but definitely the V13, based on the changes that New Balance has made of this shoe, it now sits a lot more in line with the More V4. Now, in terms of how they deliver that experience, I think the first thing to pick out here is the difference in weights. This is the much lighter shoe compared to the More V4. And that's definitely something I noticed in my time in the More V4. I just wish it was a touch bit lighter. I know why, you know, it's a bigger stack there, that foam. It feels like a bigger shoe, looks like a bigger shoe, and it kind of runs like a bigger shoe compared to the 1080 V13. Now, in terms of the midsoles, now you're both getting Freshfoam kind of midsoles here, but they do feel different to me. I would say that the one on the 1080 V13 feels a lot softer, a lot more plush. You do get that plushness here on the More V4, but it definitely feels like a different version of the Freshfoam that you're getting here in the 1080 V13. And I think for me, I think that kind of dictates or kind of influences the feeling of running these shoes. They're still built for comfort, they still have that plush feeling to them, but I feel that the softer of the two is the 1080 V13. Now, in terms of the ride, I would say that you get a kind of gentle rocker ride in the 1080 V13, which I think when you look at something like the More V4, it's a little bit more aggressive. It's not aggressive, like, you know, overly aggressive, but I think it's definitely more pronounced in terms of if you compare it to what you get in the 1080 V13. I think what that allows you is to slightly pick the pace up a little bit more in the More V4. You know, you're not going to go massively up tempo in the shoe, but I think if you wanted to do that, the way the shoe is designed does offer that a little bit, but ultimately what's counting against it is that overall weight that you're getting, and it's something that I kind of really noticed in my time with it. So I do think, as I said, there are similarities in terms of that ride, in terms of, you know, how they film the types of runs they're designed for. I would say outsole wise, I think you're going to probably get a little bit more out of the More V4. There's just a lot more rubber there. when you look at the kind of the overall designs of the two shoes ultimately. So, these are shoes that are designed to soak up a lot of time. I would say maybe the More V4 is better designed to kind of do that and kind of cover those longer distances in a more consistent basis compared to the 1080 V13. But, in the time that I've run in the 1080 V13, it hasn't felt like I've seen very noticeable signs of wear. A bit like the previous versions of the shoe, they are built for workhorse shoes that can soak up a lot of time, and that's what I found so far. But I just think maybe you're getting a little bit more on the More V4. So ultimately I think these are two shoes that are designed for the same types of runs. The 1080 V13 is lighter, I think softer. I think it has that kind of nice ride to get you nicely through your kind of running time, and it's it's comfortable and smooth as well. Whereas I think with the More V4, you're getting more protection there, you're definitely getting more cushioning. I think maybe you feel a little bit more of the bounce and a little bit more of the ride in this shoe. So if you wanted that, then I think that's what you're going to get here. But ultimately, they overlap quite a fair bit based on my testing.
Okay, so verdict, Nick, hit me. What are you going to go for?
I'd say neither of these are at the top of my tree for cushion shoes, just because they are, I think, so geared towards easy stuff, and I like a little bit more versatility. But I'm pretty evenly happy with both of these shoes, I have to say. And if I'm looking at a shoe that I'd use just for easy runs and probably long runs, I probably slightly prefer the More V4, but I wouldn't go back to the wall for that opinion. I think I'd be pretty happy with either. I think it's a bit cheaper as well. It's an older shoe, so I think the 1080 is a more notable experience. It's a softer experience. It's probably the one that I think more people will enjoy. The More V4 is quite a clunky shoe, but I do like that rolling sensation I get from it. But yeah, I think the 1080 is probably an easier shoe to recommend, but I'd probably just about pick the More V4 myself. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I think we're fairly new to the 1080 V13, and I think I'm very impressed. I'm just enjoying running it at the moment, but in reality, I am still going to go for the More V4 just because longer distance running. I think there's going to be a lot more runs that I do that I find the 1080 V13 is not quite the right shoe for. Whereas, I don't use the More V4 for that many runs, apart from those sort of easy day runs, consistent runs, and things like that. But if I was going to do a longer session, maybe up to 20 miles as a long run for marathon training, I think I'd definitely go for the More V4. So overall, I'm going to go More V4 just because it's just got that little bit more sort of rolling action to it, a little bit more firm. But also, I've had it for so long that I love it. So I can't really pick on this one yet. We actually got a good question on the channel, which is useful to bring up on this one. Somebody was asking which of these is not which of these was it the 1080 V13 or the Asics Gel Nimbus 25, which is more like the Invincible. And I think that's an interesting question, because a lot of people, based on how people describe the 1080 V13, would probably assume it's similar to the Invincible, but I don't think it really is.
I don't know. I think it's got the same kind of squishy, sink-in feeling. It just doesn't have the bounce of the Invincible.
Exactly. That's the bit that people are missing. So if you wanted it for the soft, squishy feeling, you might be all right. But if you want a feeling, that Zoom X feeling, it's not Zoom X foam. It's just soft.
It's Freshfoam X.
It's
got an X in it.
Well, I get confused with Freshfoam X because even though they're constantly changing the midsole foam, it's still called Freshfoam X. So when you balance all of it, the fuel cell changes from shoe to shoe as well, and it is slightly annoying, yeah. To call it like Freshfoam X2 or something.
It's not as annoying as Salomon, Tom. I've got 4 Phantasm shoes. I had to talk about it in the review, trying to explain which Phantasm it was. It's anyway, we digress.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I'm going More V4.
Yeah, I think I am too, but get it to 1080. It's also a very good shoe.
So verdict for me then, I think if you're looking for a shoe that's primarily going to be your easy day comfort, recovery run, head up, kind of plodding cocoon cruiser, then I think that both these shoes can do a job. If I had to pick one for that, I think I would go 1080 V13. I just feel it's a little bit more compact. It's a little bit more agile. I think there's a little bit more response to it. I feel less interfered with overall. I think the More V4 have that extra kind of wide base, wide midsole that brings some structure and a bit more support. And if you need that, then I think go for that. But for me personally, I don't, and I much prefer feeling a little bit more in control overall that you get, I think, for the 1080 V13. I also think the V13, although I wouldn't really use it for runs that were sort of faster than easy necessarily, I do think that they can cope with that much better than the More V4. The More V4 very much for me fit into a shoe that I would only really use up to a certain pace, and it would be on those easy runs. I think the 1080 V13, if you really wanted to you could probably bash out some sort of faster miles. Though I wouldn't, again, wouldn't be my shoe of choice to do that. But if you were doing a long run where you needed to put in some slightly quicker intervals, I think the 1080 would probably do a better job. It's much more expensive, so I don't know if price comes down to it and you're just looking for a shoe that will only go for cruising. You don't mind having that bit of extra structure and that bit of kind of extra kind of, it's not interference as such, but that along that kind of lines, then maybe you go more V4. But for me personally, I think the shoe that feels best on the run, has the most response, feels most kind of natural and comfortable, and it suits my running better with a little bit less shoe on the foot, that's going to be the 1080 V13.
So if I had to pick between the New Balance 1080 V13 or the More V4, I would be going for the 1080 V13. Now, it is a little bit more expensive than More V4, but ultimately this is the shoe that I thought this shoe would be, and ultimately, we had to wait to get a shoe that I think from New Balance that is on par with some of those kind of comfortable cushion shoes that we've seen this year from other brands. This is a shoe that's lighter, still offers that kind of soft, comfortable, level of cushioning and protection for those longer runs. And I think the outsole durability is going to be solid overall to make sure you can run a lot in this shoe. And it's got a similar level of comfort in terms of that upper as well. I think with the More V4, as I said, you can pick it up for a little bit less, but I think it's the heavier shoe. I think while you are getting that good stack of Freshfoam there, I don't think it's as soft as plush as what you're getting on the 1080 V13. And ultimately, it isn't a shoe that long term I've wanted to put back on. The 1080 V13 has been a shoe post testing that I have wanted to use a lot more. I think, as I said, they offer similar experiences and built for the same types of runs, but I think for me, I've had a better experience overall running those types of runs in the 1080 V13. So for me, if I had to pick, I would be paying a little bit more and going for the 1080 V13.
That's it from us. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell, all of those sorts of things. And if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out at the end of each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.